Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Midtown Scholar Bookstore's virtual event series. My name is Alex Brubaker. I'm the manager here at the Scholar, and as always, I am live in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania at the Bookstore. Whether you're joining us on Crowdcast or Facebook Live or even YouTube Live, thanks so much for tuning in. Welcome to our live stream series where we host authors and speakers, and we keep the conversation going about books we love. Our featured book this afternoon is TODD, The Life of Roy Halladay by TODD ZOLECKI. If you haven't yet purchased the book, I'd like to encourage you to do so. Purchasing Todd's book through us helps support the author, our staff, and it helps the bookstore continue to run during this strange time that we're living in. If you click the green button below, it's right below my face. That will direct you to our website to purchase a first edition copy of Todd's book. And Todd was actually nice enough to provide us with signed book plates as well that you can attach to the book. So if you order through us, you get that signed book plate with every order. If you're watching this through Facebook Live or YouTube Live, look in the comments section and you should see we've provided a link there as well, or simply head to midtownscholar.com. Now I have to plug one bit of information here. The bookstore is still technically closed to the public as of now, but we are offering a Saturday sidewalk sale every Saturday in June from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. right outside the front of the store. We bring out new releases, signed copies, bestsellers, discount books. We'll certainly bring out more copies of TODD. Yours truly will be there all day. So if you want to swing by and say hi and maybe grab a book or two, we would love to see you. Now on to our program this evening. We are honored to welcome two of the best in the biz, TODD ZOLECKI and Tom McCARTHY, to virtual Harrisburg. If you're a Phillies fan, many of you know Tom McCARTHY. He is now in his 20th season in the big leagues and the 13th year of his second tour of duty with the Phillies, doing television play-by-play. A graduate of the College of New Jersey, Tom has done extensive broadcasting for collegiate sports in his career. He currently does NFL games for CBS, baseball for Fox, basketball and college football play-by-play for CBS and NFL. In 2013, he was named Sportscaster of the Year by the National Sportscasters and Sports Writers Association. Our featured author this evening is TODD ZOLECKI. Todd is the Philadelphia Phillies beat reporter for MLB.com. He is the author of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, Philadelphia Phillies, and The Rotation, a season with the Phillies and the greatest pitching staff ever assembled. Of course, again, the book we are here for this evening is titled TODD, The Life of Roy Halladay. The book is based on over 100 exclusive interviews with those closest with Roy, and it's a celebration and a profound exploration of a generational pitcher and a beloved teammate, friend, and family man. Before I hand it off to Tom and Todd, I'd like to encourage you to ask questions. Please click the Ask a Question button below my face. Again, it's right below the green button. If you have a question for Tom or Todd, I can't promise we'll get to all of them, but we'll save some time after the interview to go over your questions. But at this time, please join me in welcoming onto the screen TODD ZOLECKI and Tom McCARTHY.
Yeah, Alex, thank you. We appreciate it. It's nice to see Todd's face. We haven't seen each other in about 3 months like everybody else. And the first thing that I think about when I see that picture of Doc, and I think Phillies fans probably realize that too, is that picture is as intense as he was in person. I mean, he truly was on and off the floor when he played. I don't think he was that way after he retired, just from the times we saw him. But that picture tells a lot of the story about who he was and what he was like.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually pushed. They had a different cover for the book, and they sent it to me, and it was him tipping his cap after he threw the no-hitter against the Reds in the postseason. And I just said, you know what, we need to try to look for something different. And I said, I got to be a picture of him during photo day and spring training, of him just like looking into the camera with that intense stare. Because to me, that you're right, that's the vision I have of him, either on the mound or, I mean, like just him just walking through the clubhouse from the video room to the gym or whatever. Like, he always had that look on his face. I mean, he was a man on a mission, as long as he pitched from, with the Phillies.
Unfortunately, Doc passed away a year and a half ago, and we just celebrated the 10th anniversary of his perfect game. Was this book, was it on the back of your mind for a while about doing something like this?
Yeah, it was. And Tom, there was like a couple things that I always thought were really interesting about Roy, playing career and post-playing career. Now, everybody kind of knows a little bit of the baseball story. Former first-round draft pick, almost throws a no-hitter in his second start, and then he has like this terrible season in 2000. Blue Jays, gets sent down A-ball. I always kind of wanted to dig into more of that and kind of get into like what was going on at the time and how did he really dig himself out of it. But the one thing I thought was really interesting to me was after his career was over, how he said he wanted to continue to kind of carry on the legacy of Harvey Dorfman, because I mean, he talked about Harvey all the time. He carried
all the time. He and Jamie Moyer did all the time. All the time.
Yes, they credited him so much to saving their careers and giving them the careers that they had. And Roy, when Roy said, "I want to go back to school for sports psychology, I want to like carry on his work," I was like, wow. I mean, you think about it, like how many players, Hall of Fame players with they made that much money in their careers, are willing to go do that type of work? Usually they do something else. That was a real job with real office hours, but he wanted to do it. And to me, that really impressed me.
Yeah, let's give people a picture of that too, because he had an office at the Carpenter Complex, which is the complex behind the main field in Clearwater, which I don't think many people knew. I didn't know until spring training the 1 year that he was there, or I should say instructional league, the 1 year he was there. But he actually had an office where he would bring in young players and kind of let them talk to him as if he was a psychologist, but it was a baseball psychologist.
It was a baseball psychologist. And, he spent like 4 figures on a zero gravity chair because he thought that would be a way to maybe get some players to come into his office and feel more comfortable. He would sit in the cafeteria by himself and just kind of like, just letting people know, I'm here to talk to you. Like I might be Roy Halladay, but I'm here for you guys. I'm here to help. He had stacks of copies of the Mental ABCs of Pitching. He would just give them like, hey, I want you to read this. This might help you. He would highlight chapters. He called players. He emailed players. He texted players just to kind of check in with them. So it wasn't like he was bored. He wanted to do something. He showed up at the ballpark a couple hours out and left. Like he actually did real work, and he actually talked to players. And it was kind of cool talking to a lot of the minor leaguers and guys that were in the minor leagues and now are in the big leagues that talked to him, and they're like, yeah, he really helped me out. We really hashed some things out, and it was a great experience.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the book. It begins not with the perfect game, but with the no-hitter in the postseason. Give me your thoughts on why that was the perfect chapter to start things off with.
I think because that was something Roy had been chasing his entire life. He, in the big leagues, he came to Philadelphia because he wanted to get in the postseason. And I uncovered this interview that he did with MLB Productions after he retired. And he said he always just wanted to know, could he do it? He had watched Chris Carpenter do it, his best friend, win a World Series with the Cardinals. He had seen all these other pitchers that he had dominated in the regular season, pitched great in the postseason. And that was the big question he wanted answered more than anything was, if I get in that moment with everything that Harvey has taught me, can I actually, succeed with all that pressure? And obviously he did. So I just thought it was such a great game. The atmosphere was amazing. It was such a Roy Halladay moment, obviously one of the greatest Phillies moments ever. Mm-hmm. He just setting up that scene of Roy Halladay at his best in his biggest moment, to me, was just a great way to lead off that book.
I thought the part where he talked, and maybe this was part of the video, about the white flags flying. I thought I thought of Kevin Costner and For the Love of the Game, because it was the same type of thing when he was throwing the no-hitter at the end. He's sitting there soaking it all, and he said, all right, let's get back to pitching here. I thought that was kind of cool, that sort of description of it.
Yeah, and you know what I thought was cool about that? So Roy was saying how in that last at-bat before Brandon Phillips stepped in, he looked around, and he said he could feel the earth shaking.
Yeah.
Roy was so zeroed in on everything. He never let that stuff get to him, or he never really thought about it when he pitched. But so the fact that he said he let himself kind of soak it in for a moment, I thought was really, interesting to me and kind of cool for him to actually acknowledge this. Wow, this is pretty cool. The rally towels are waving. And then, like you said, he goes, okay, enough. Got the sign and started throwing a chooch. That was a great Roy Halladay moment.
I think that what we didn't realize, and I think I realized it in your book and even in the ESPN feature, which a lot of what was in there was in your book, that this all started at a really young age. I guess I never realized that it all of this, the machine part of it, started at a very young age.
Yeah, he started really young. His dad kind of groomed him to be a pitcher, wanted him or believed he could be a baseball player, and basically worked him to be a baseball player. So, his dad built him a pitching mound in his basement. He made sure the basement was long enough, so he could throw a bullpen session. He built a batting cage with chain link fences hanging from the beams, and then his dad got the Nolan Ryan pitching Bible, came out in the early 90s. Got him weight bench, got him weights. This is what Nolan Ryan does. This is what you're going to do. And there was a lot of that growing up. He felt a lot of pressure at times because of it, but it's kind of like he also acknowledged that without that, maybe he doesn't get to where he did in the big leagues. But yeah, he started very, very young, and it was a daily thing. It was kind of like a full-time job in a sense.
You talked to so many guys, so many people. Was there somebody that stood out that was most interesting that you didn't realize would have as much information about Roy? Because again, there's a lot of stuff that I read in the book that I didn't. I mean, we covered him for how many years? Did you know all of that? I mean, I know I didn't know all that.
No, I didn't. You know who I thought? There's really like 4 people that really kind of gave you a real inside look into what he was like behind the scenes, and that was. The Blue Jays trainer, George Poulos.
George is a great guy. And
yes.
To this day, he still wells up when he talks about Doc.
Yeah, well, I talked to him a couple times, and yeah, he would still get choked up talking about it. He loves Roy Halladay. Scott Sheridan, the Phillies trainer, same thing, same type of experience. And then the 2 strength and conditioning coordinators, Donovan Santos, Blue Jays, and then Dong Lean from the Phillies. And Dong, I thought, gave me a great little anecdote, and it was in that first chapter. And he's like, everybody always talked about how Roy always had headphones in, and he was always listening to something. And sometimes it was the book on tape, Harvey Dorfman, which he actually paid somebody to go in the studio and record.
I thought that was incredible. I had to go back and look at it, Todd, because I thought when I read it the first time, I thought, wait, did he voice it? But he got somebody else to voice it.
He paid a narrator to read the book and put it on his iPod so he could dial it up whenever he wanted to. So he was either listening to that or music. And Dong said, when he would stretch him around that time, he said he always seemed to be listening to some Enya.
Yeah.
The song, I think it's Only Time. And it's this really mellow, kind of new agey type of music. And I thought that was so interesting because you think of Roy Halladay and how mean he looked on the mound and intense, and you thought he'd be listening to some rock music, heavy metal music. But no, he because he needed to be in total control with his mind.
Yeah.
Really relaxing music to kind of get him in the zone, and that's what he listened to. And I thought that was kind of neat.
I always felt when he went out on the mound, it was kind of what Victorino said, and even the first chapter where he said that he could tell that night against the Reds that there was something going on. It was like Rollins and Utley realizing it was kind of like the perfect game all over, or Ibanez. Kind of like the perfect game all over again. I did feel that way. I mean, I know the perfect game was a big part of his life too, but that was I never felt like he was as frail as we've now come to find out. Like everybody else, he was like everybody else, where he had demons that he had to deal with. And I didn't realize all of that. I mean, your book brought a lot of it to light. The E60 brought a lot of it to light too. Was that hard to do that part of it?
Yeah, it was hard to do that part of it just because it's such a sensitive topic, and people can be quick to judge and not empathetic. So I wanted to be really careful with how I wrote that. And I wanted to be very respectful of him. And that's when I talked to Brandy about the book and, why I wanted to write it and how I saw it going. I made a point to say, I want to get into this delicately and
yes,
not hammer it home. And I'm not interested in writing a salacious tell-all, but these are the facts, and I want to get into this too, and maybe explain a little bit of what was going on. And that's been kind of nice to hear some reactions from people that, they're like, hey, I've been struggling too. And it's nice to know that there are other people out there, even like great Roy Halladay. And so that's been kind of some nice feedback I've gotten from people.
What did you think? How hard was it to talk to his family members?
It was tough. It was really tough. And in fact, you know, I when I talked with Brandy initially in February of 2019 in Clearwater, I talked to her a few times after that over the phone, and I hadn't really gotten into too much of that stuff, scattered throughout. But then I had the real tough conversation with her about, you know, the final day and the aftermath and the time leading up to it in September. And that was just a really long conversation, tough conversation. You know, you feel terrible even bringing it up, you know.
I thought you put it eloquently, though. I really did. I thought
Thank you.
It was pretty vivid.
Yeah, thank you. And I tried to do it in a non-salacious way, you know, kind of just putting it out there. And you know, Brandy was great. You know, we saw her on the E60 talk, and she was great talking to me, and she's really been great with everything that she's done. You know, the speech in Cooperstown last summer.
Oh, yeah.
The appearances that she's done, she's really kind of, I think, put things in perspective and done a nice job herself.
So we've been fortunate, you know, we've watched Pedro Martinez in this generation, Greg Maddux in this generation, Roy Halladay. I mean, he really was as good as anybody the game has seen in the last 25 years, 30 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what I thought was cool was, you know, the voting for like Cy Young Awards has changed over the years. A little bit more in the analytics, whereas back then when he was first kind of catching fire, it might have been like, well, if you're a 20-game winner, you're a Cy Young candidate. If you're 19, you're falling a little bit short. When you look back at his career, and if you look at a lot of those analytics now, he probably should have like maybe at least one or two more Cy Young Awards.
I agree with you. I agree.
You know,
with you.
I was
so
talking
did you
with.
Realize that when you were writing it, was that part of it? Like you're like, man, he was a lot better than even I thought.
Yes, that's exactly right. Because I think in my brain, you know, I'm 44. I'm still like, you know, 20 wins is the magic number. So you look at, he only won 20 games like 3 times or 2 or 3 times. But, you know, I was talking to that Blue Jays catcher, Tom Wilson, who caught him a lot in 2002. And he's like, I think he got hosed that year in the Cy Young Award. I'm like, let me go take a look at this. I was like, he actually did. Like, he probably should have won the Cy Young Award day. And then and then 2011 as well, Clayton Kershaw won it. But Roy's numbers were better. I mean, you look at it. Clayton Kershaw had more wins, but Roy was the better pitcher in 2011. He probably should have won 2 consecutive Cy Young Awards for the Phillies.
I know everybody that's on here has either gotten the book or is getting the book or has read a lot of the book. I don't want to skate past the part where he went down to the minor leagues, because I think that's a huge part of even his life or anybody's life that's trying to do something special. It wasn't all success. There was failure and then success again.
Yeah, there was a lot of failure. He had a 10.64 ERA in 2000, and it's still the single season highest ERA in baseball history. And you hear that and you go, wow, that's a terrible season. That is really bad. But then you look at the players that are underneath him, and I did this. I went all the way down, like 50 spots down, and it's all like journeymen, one-and-done guys that were pitching with a torn rotator cuff and like missed the next season. Hall of Fame pitchers are never that bad ever, like not even close to being that bad. But he was that bad. He was the worst. Yeah. And so then he gets sent down, and you know, I found this quote because he gave a quote a couple times, and I found it the second time, so I knew it was legit. He said the day that he got sent down in Dunedin, he was so embarrassed. He went into a bathroom stall and basically just sat there until everybody left because he was too ashamed to run into anybody and go, I just got sent down to A-ball. He hadn't been to A-ball in years. And so, you know, that really hit me, like, you know, this affected him in a major way, and his confidence was shot, and he was embarrassed to call home and talk to his parents and say, yeah, I guess I'm not going to be the next Roger Clemens, which is what everybody in Toronto had been saying. I'm going to A-ball. And then so to have him rebuild himself and commit to it, you know, he found Harvey Dorfman. He committed to it. He met Mel Queen, who changed his delivery, but he totally like put himself all the way into it. And he said, I don't want to have this feeling anymore. And so he kind of vowed not to have that feeling anymore. And that's kind of what was the motivation the rest of his career, you know, in terms of the workouts and the preparation. He didn't want to feel that way anymore.
So when he met Mel, refresh my memory on the book and meeting Mel. Is it one before the other? Because it was Brandy that introduced him to the book.
Brandy introduced Roy to Harvey Dorfman. Are you talking about Mel or Mel Queen or Harvey?
Well, Brandy introduced him to the book that Harvey wrote.
Right.
And then Mel took him and broke down his mechanics and brought him
yes,
back.
Yes. So Brandy went to the bookstore and like saw this book, Mental ABCs of Pitching. She kind of laughed. She's like, who actually needs this book? She's like, I can't believe somebody actually wrote a book about this. This is so weird. But she's like, oh, my husband's a pitcher. Maybe this could help him. And, he picked it up, and he said this during a seminar, a Phillies prospect seminar in January of 2016. He said, I picked up the book and I felt like this guy was following me around my entire life. Like he was writing stuff down, like stuff that was going on in my head, which I thought was really amazing. Like Harvey nailed it. And then Mel Queen was his pitching coach, his first Blue Jays when he first came up. And then Mel got fired as a pitching coach. He was still in the organization. And then Roy was still struggling in A-ball in 2001. And Mel, they sent him up to Double-A. Roy thought he was getting promoted. Well, it turns out they put him on the Phantom DL and had him work with Mel. And Mel basically just tore him a new one, just crushed him. Tore him down mentally and then
broke him down to build him back up again.
Built him back up. And he basically said, if you don't do what I say, you're going to be out of baseball in 3 months. You're going to be done. You're going to be in a first-round bust. You're acting like an idiot. You're acting stupid. And he basically said the key to his turnaround, he said, just try to throw a sidearm for me. And so Roy's like, all right. He just dropped his arm slot down a little bit. The rest was history, and it was amazing. Everybody's like, it clicked. As soon as he did that, the ball started to move, shot up, and it was crazy. It was crazy how quickly it turned around for him.
When you write a book like this, I mean, there's such a range of emotion. Were there days where you walked away going, whew?
Yeah, there were a lot of days like that. I mean, especially those chapters late in the book. I felt they were so tough to write because I really did want to do a story justice in a fair way. While also not skirting anything. I didn't want to not write something.
Well, the flying part was a big part of his life. I mean, toward the end of his career, I mean, through his entire life, but at the end of his career and even in retirement, I think a lot of people thought that he had found something with that too.
Yeah, that was his moment of zen, and he talked about that. She said he would like to go out there to forget about life for a while and just kind of, relax and clear his head. And she totally understood that, although she wishes he wasn't flying at the time because of all the other stuff that was going on. But those were the moments that were really stressful, and I wanted every chapter to feel like I did it justice. So I was always like, is there one more person I can get? Is there another person I can talk to? So that was always on my mind as well. But in fact, there's always a couple people I still go, I wish I could have gotten this person. That would have been great. But that'll be it for another time.
Well, I mean, and we all know all of his teammates. I mean, they're close friends with both of us. I mean, as far as dealing with them, was it interesting to talk to those guys and get their perspective on them? I mean, guys like Chase Utley, even Jimmy Rollins and Shane Victorino. I mean, Shane can be all over the place sometimes, but he's also pretty enlightening sometimes.
Yeah, Shane was great. Jimmy was great. Jimmy told me the great story of they were on a Nike trip, and I used that to open up so just J-Roll's rolling out of bed in Hawaii or wherever they were on this trip to going down and going, I need to get myself a coffee and an omelet at the the lounge they have for all the players on the Nike trip. And then Roy's coming back drenched in sweat. And Jimmy's like, are you serious, dude? Like, what are you doing? He's like, I have to work out. I have to work out. I mean, my workouts have started, so I have to work out while I'm on this trip. And Jimmy's like, oh my God, the stories of this guy are true. He really does.
That's really funny.
And then one other great quote that I love a lot in the book is Jason Worth in the perfect game chapter. He was talking about how when you knew it was Roy's day to pitch, you could just tell. And he's like, the feelings just changed inside of him. Like he said, you play 162 games. He's like, sometimes you kind of go through the motions a little bit. You can't be intense. He's like, Cliff Lee, 20 minutes before the game, he'd be throwing wads of paper into a trash can for $100 a pop.
Right.
Relaxed. He's like, with Roy, it was like, game on, dude. Do not mess around. And he's like, it was kind of a pressure. But it was an intensity, and and something that really kind of got his juices flowing. He said he loved it. He said he loved playing behind Roy because he knew how much he cared about it. So he kind of like stepped up his own game as much as he could.
Yeah, there was an air of quietness in the clubhouse when he pitched. There really was. I mean, it's and I thought about it. I thought about it with the perfect game chapter. I thought about it with the no-hitter chapter. There's always an air of quietness where like, all right, I'm not going to go in there because there's like too much going on right now. So
yeah, Roy, he did not want to burst his cocoon of preparation.
It's cocoon.
Yeah, you did not want to mess with him, and everybody knew it too. You know, like, Scott Sheridan, the Phillies trainer, would say that he'd be stretching Roy, and he could not talk to him while he was stretching before a game. And like people would be walking by like trying to make Scott crack up. They knew if he cracked up, he might get in trouble.
Yeah.
They so Scott had to stop looking out the window because like if I crack up while I'm stretching Roy, like he could strangle me.
That's so great. We love him in Philadelphia, obviously, but he was probably loved even more in Canada.
Yeah, I mean, he is. So it's interesting as the book has come out. I've had a lot of people reach out from Canada, and the book is doing really well there. And it's like the entire country loves Roy Halladay. It's crazy. I've talked with people from Winnipeg and Edmonton and Vancouver, and people there still really, really do love him a lot. And they, he's the greatest pitcher in their franchise's history for sure.
No doubt. All right. I know people have questions. We're going to bring Alex back on, and we're going to take some questions. If you haven't gotten the book yet, obviously you're on here because you're interested in it, but it is a really great read. It's an easy read too. Is it the best? Is it the most fun you've had out of the three, or the most intense? I mean, I know the other two were a little different. Was it the most fun you had or most intense you had?
Yeah, it was the most fun. And I'm glad you said it's an easy read, because I always think like if you read a book and it's over 300 pages, and if you feel like you can just fly through it, to me that's a great sign. If it's 350 pages, you're like, man, it took me 2 months to get through this thing. That's not a good sign. So I appreciate you saying that. And I've gotten a lot of feedback from that too. Like people saying, I read this book. I went to the show this week and I ran through this book in 2 days, or that type of stuff has been awesome. So yeah, it was the most fun to write. It was the most intense and the most pressure to write, just because again, I just wanted to make sure I did him right in one way or shape or form.
All right, Alex, you want to take it away? We got some questions.
Yeah, we've got some great questions from the audience here, so I'm gonna try to fly through them here. I love this question. This question's from Brian. They ask, who was, and this is Todd, I want you to answer, but Tom, feel free to jump in too. Who was Halladay most excited to face at the plate, or most nervous?
Most excited. It's funny. Most excited to face. I don't know if he ever said anybody in specifically, but I just know that he loved to compete against the best. So I think he loved the matchups against Jeter and Manny, and kind of going through those American League East lineups. He really enjoyed the challenge of facing those teams, even when the Blue Jays weren't very good and competitive. He just loved to go after those guys because that was his way of challenging himself, even though the team wasn't very competitive.
Yeah, the Yankees guys, I think would be the Yankees Red Sox guys when he was in the American League. I think those guys, the Jeters, the A-Rods, people like that. Big Poppy getting a cutter inside on them.
Exactly.
All right, let's go on to the next question. This question's from Marilee. They're wondering if you spoke with Roy's sons while you were working on the book, and they say, amazing job with lots of emotions, but so glad you did it. Yeah,
thank you. No, so that was one of the people I wish I could have gotten to talk to. Is I kind of ran out of time, to be honest. Tried to set it up with something with Braden. Ryan, the youngest of the two boys, he's a lot more reserved. He's kind of like Roy, personality. Yep. He didn't have any interest in talking. You saw Braden did talk to John Barr from ESPN for the E60, and Braden, I talked to him a little bit in Cooperstown. He's an awesome kid, and he's at Penn State, and he looks like his dad. He pitched, he's got the same delivery like his dad. So hopefully he can, make something out of his career, maybe get drafted at some point. Or
he was excellent in the John Barr interviews. I mean, he was beyond his years. He was beyond his years.
All right, this next question is from, let's see, from Margaret. They ask, to either of you, did you ever meet Harvey Dorfman?
I never did. I never met Harvey. I've had Jamie Moyer and Roy Halladay and Raul Bonios bring him up in conversation many, many times, but I never got to meet Harvey. Rich Doobie, the former Phillies pitching coach, worked with Harvey in Miami with the Marlins, and he talked a lot about him and what the personality that he had. He wasn't like, I kind of make the book, he wasn't Stuart Smalley from Saturday Night Live, gosh darn people like me and positive daily affirmations. He would chew you out if he didn't think you were behaving correctly.
Yeah, he would.
Yeah, he would.
Yeah, I never met him. I did get his books though when I was in the minor leagues. I don't know why I got them. I think I just got them just to have information more than anything else. Yeah, the book is The Mental ABCs of Pitching. I have a copy, and it's really, I could see how it could help a lot of people because he really breaks it down, and it can relate to other things too. I thought anyway. Yes, yeah, absolutely can. Like Brandy, I talked with Brandy. I didn't put this in the book, but Brandy said that she actually will give out copies of the book to people to kids that are on her son's swim team, or whatever basketball team, because there's different things in that book that can kind of help you as an athlete no matter what. Yeah.
All right, this next question is from Justin. They ask, and Todd, you kind of mentioned this earlier, but what did you find to be the most difficult part of writing this biography?
I think the most difficult part about writing it was the day that Roy died, just because there's so many emotions in it. And then when I will never forget that day. I was in my hotel room in Atlanta. I called up Brandy on the phone, and we kind of went through the day, and she was just amazing talking about it. And the part that really kind of broke her down was how, she described how Braden found out and the boys found out, from, I don't know if I want to give it away or not, but, they found out from a friend before she could tell them. And that's the part that really crushed her the most, was that she could not tell them on her own terms that their father had died.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, so it was really hard. That was really hard. That was a really hard conversation.
It's hard.
Yeah,
yep.
Awful.
This next question is from Brian. They ask, was Chooch Doc's favorite catcher? If not, who? And Chooch is Carlos Ruiz, of course, to the Phillies fans out there.
Chooch was Doc's favorite catcher by far. He had some great catchers with the Blue Jays, but Roy loved Chooch. And in fact, in that interview after his career was over with MLB Productions, he talked about how, because Roy would have this game plan, and he would not allow his catchers to really deviate from the game plan too much. But he let Chooch kind of riff a little bit. By about the fifth inning, he said that Chooch would start kind of mixing things up, and he trusted Chooch so much he let him do it. Other catchers, he would give him the stare down and say, "This is not what I want you to do." But with Chooch, he did, and they, Chooch is devastated, when he learned that Roy died, because they were very, very close. I mean, Roy got him a replica Cy Young Award because he felt that he played that much of a role in him winning the 2010 Cy Young Award. He got him besides the watch for the perfect game, he got him a ring as well. I mean, that it's just amazing the love that he had for Chooch.
Plus, he also did that commercial with him where he had the pillow, where he took him everywhere he went, which I thought was one of the only times we saw the jocularity of Roy Halladay when we had him in Philadelphia.
So that next spring when that commercial came out, I myself and Ryan Lawrence, who used to cover the Phillies for the Daily News, I said, that commercial's really good. I didn't think you could. He goes, "You didn't think I could act?" I said, "No, I didn't." He's like, he kind of laughed because he knew what his personality was. I said, "Yeah. You actually did a really good job. It was legitimately funny. It wasn't like an athlete doing a bad commercial. You were really good." He's like, "Thanks." And that it was over.
All right, next question is going to go to Michelle. They ask, while doing research for the book, what were you most surprised to find out about Doc?
I think what I was most surprised to find out was how much, as much as he talked about the mental side of the game, to realize how much he was actually going through on the field and off the field, mentally, anxiety issues and confidence issues and all of those things. I think those were things that surprised me a little bit, and how much in terms of his physical preparation, it wasn't just for endurance purposes and muscle strength building purposes. It was also for like mental purposes. Like if he didn't go running one day, he wouldn't feel confident when he stepped on the mound, even if he was pitching a Cy Young season against the worst team in baseball. If he dogged it during one of his workouts, he wouldn't feel good about himself. I thought that was interesting. It was the physical work was as much mental as it was physical.
And I thought when we first saw the sort of chink in the armor a little bit in Chicago and Miami, where he seemed to be overheated, and we found out that there was medication that was involved in that. That's where we were like, this guy doesn't break down because he just works out constantly.
Yes.
That was where I think all of us thought, oh no, something's wrong. Physically, something's wrong. That was the first time that I thought that.
Yeah, I agree. You didn't really know what was going on, but I mean, yeah, Tom, I watched the highlight of that game, his last game with the Phillies in Miami, and it was crazy to see, the sweat, and he was so red, and he looked.
We knew something was wrong,
yeah,
because there had been a previous game in Chicago. The work was winding down almost, and we were like, okay, something's really wrong here.
Right. Yeah. It was, you could definitely tell there's something was right.
All right, so this next question, I like this question. It's questions from Robert. They ask, so what made Roy Halladay so hard to hit?
Well, me have never stood in the batter's box against him. I can only go off of what some of the other hitters have said. They, I talked to Rocco Baldelli, who's now the Twins manager, used to play for the Rays, and he said he would throw almost wiffle ball-like sinkers.
Absolutely.
They would just this crazy break on the ball, and the movement on the ball was so good. I talked with Eric Hinsky. He made the final out in that 2008 World Series with the Rays, but he also faced Roy more than any other any other pitcher in his career, and they called it the X. He could throw the cutter and the sinker to both sides of the plate on the edges, so he could make X's with it. The cutter, in on left-handers, and the cutter away to right-hander. It was just the fact that when the ball left his hand, you had no idea if it was going to beat you in on your knuckles or it was going to, Like they had no idea what it was going to do. They had no idea what the ball was going to do.
So this next question is from Adam. They ask, Todd, when did you know that Roy had serious mental challenges he was dealing with?
Honestly,
good question.
Yeah, that is. Tom, I don't know about you, but you kind of thought something was going. Let me put it this way. I didn't really think anything was going on until 2013, in terms of, where I saw like a real clear difference in him. Like, he seemed like to lose weight. His speech was a little bit slower at times. He seemed to be taking some sort of medications or whatever. But really not until, I started talking with Brandy to really get a true sense of kind of what he was dealing with personally, both physically and mentally. But yeah, that 2013 season when I was like, wow, something is definitely different here. I don't know what you thought, Tom.
Yeah, he was off a little bit, but I still didn't know that there was outside sort of demons that were affecting him. Yeah, I remember seeing him in spring training after he retired, and he was really trim, and then the next year he was really heavy. And I thought, well, I guess he's enjoying his retirement, but I'll be.
Looks like can you hear him, Todd? I
can't. Tom, I lost you, buddy.
All right. Hey, I'll kick him off, and then I'll just invite him back on screen here.
Okay.
But to piggyback on that, and also, so I was looking at Halladay's baseball reference page today, and just as early as 2011, he was dominant. So that fall seemed to happen pretty quickly. So the next question to kind of piggyback on that is from Mike, and they ask, does baseball or the Phillies do anything different now with players after Roy's issues?
Well, that's a great question. I think certainly now there's more of an awareness about it. And maybe, I do think that if there's ever a player that needs help, I think they're very proactive about it. They have Dickie Knowles as the employee assistance program director. Anytime any player is going through something serious, they try to get Dickie involved. And there you are. Hey, Tom. And so I think that whenever these situations pop up, I always think that they try to do what they can to help the player. So I don't think that, maybe now that there's more of an awareness about the severity of mental health, because it does really seem like, even though it's been going on forever, I feel like it's really kind of picked up an acknowledgement that this stuff exists and people go through this stuff. So over the past, 4 or 5 years, even, I really think people acknowledge that mental health is a real serious thing for people to be dealing with.
Okay, so the next question is going to be from, let's see. This one's from Deborah. This is a good one. Did Roy ever show a more relaxed, funny side to his personality, say when he was on road trips with his teammates, or was he pretty much quiet and focused like he usually presents himself?
I thought he was quiet. I thought he was quiet and focused all the time. I really did. We used to do these charity events for fans feeding families, and Brandy would be, effervescent and talking and chatting and everything like that. And Roy would just be there in uniform, and that was pretty much it. I mean, and I tried to joke with him, even when he signed my scorecard when he pitched the perfect game. He goes, "This is cool." Then he handed it right back to me.
I wish I could say I heard any cool behind the scenes.
The commercial's the only thing, truly.
Yeah, the commercial was the only thing. The commercial he did with the Chooch pillow for MLB The Show was really the only time I ever saw a funny side from him. I mean, every once in a while, like Frank Kopenbarger, who used to work for the Phillies, told the story of he flew a remote control helicopter through the clubhouse and dropped off Ryan Howard's check to him in the food room. But that's about it. Nothing really other than that.
No.
He was serious.
All right, let's go to the next question. This question's from Travis. They just want to know, what was Roy's best pitch?
I think the pitch that he thought gave him a lot of success was his cutter. He loved the cutter. He fell in love with the cutter because, Mariano Rivera helped. He always threw one. He was one of the first pitches he threw with the Blue Jays, but he was always trying to perfect that pitch. And then when he had Mariano kind of show him how to grip it, he really took off. And the Yankees were so mad at Mariano that and they're like, "Why would you do this?"
The best part is there's footage of Mariano showing him how to do it. That's the best part. There's literally footage in an All-Star game of Mariano showing him how to throw it.
That's how he got busted. They're like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
You can see him like moving his finger, and Roy's looking at the ball. He's like, "Okay, so where's your thumb exactly?"
And then he drew his fingers on it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That ball, the ball that he drew his fingers on is now in the Hall of Fame. It's a cool little piece of memorabilia.
I think that's his best pitch. I mean, the sinker was obviously, the one that got him where he was because the ball moved every which way. His fastball, his two-seamer. But I think it was the cutter. I don't think there's any question.
No doubt. He loved it.
So this isn't even a question. It's just a comment, but I got to read it. It's from Brenda, and they say, "No question, just a comment." Oh, now I lost it. No question, just a comment. Loved the book. Great insight and well done. So just had to include that in there.
Somebody also said how sad the last chapter was, and it was from Margaret, who said, "I love the book. Cried my eyes out the last chapter." I mean, that's it's the same way the book, but also the 60. I mean, it was hard. It was hard to watch, and it was hard to read it, even though we knew some of it. You obviously had more information, Todd, than we all did. It was hard though. Yeah,
it was. It was tough. It was tough to write, and I've gotten a lot of that reaction from people. So I, in a sense, I feel like I did my job, and that
no doubt
it resonated with people to some degree. Even though it was sad. to kind of give a complete picture of his life.
We have time for just a couple more questions here, and then we've got to wrap up. But Ryan asks, would Roy be the greatest pitcher to never win a World Series? What do you guys think about that?
I'd have to think. That's a good one.
That's tough. That is tough. I would have to think who else is out there that has not won the series.
I mean,
think about that.
Maddox won.
Like
that's a really good question. I mean, he could be, but I'm sure there's others that we're not thinking of.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of a current pitcher, Clayton Kershaw won a World Series.
Yeah.
Current, in terms of like Hall of Fame pitchers, current Hall of Fame pitchers, I would have to think about. That's a great question though.
Yeah. Bert Blyleven. Yeah, that's a really good question. I'd have to think about it. I mean, the last 20 years, maybe. I mean, Clayton Kershaw is a great person to throw in there. But he's probably one of them.
Yeah.
Probably one of them.
Yeah.
And this is a great question to end on. I was going to ask some variation of this question, but this question's from Mike, and they ask, is there a favorite story or experience either of you had with Doc that isn't in the book that you'd be willing to share?
I think for me, it's The Perfect Game. I mean, I never collected anything. I shouldn't say that. I mean, I have some things that nobody autographed, but I figured, I mean, it was only 20 at the time. I wanted to get it framed, and I wanted to get it signed. And since that time, I've gotten other things signed because of it. And even though his reaction was sort of like, "This is cool," it was still neat because he looked at it and saw, the numbers, the preparation, the fact that I forgot to fill in the last out, which I didn't realize until I showed it to him and he signed it. That to me was kind of cool.
I had a little interaction with him, which always makes me laugh because reporters, they'll ask, I try to ask smart questions all the time. I mentioned this in the book, but I asked a really dumb question. So there was this game in Cincinnati. He gave up 13 hits. He threw a complete game, but I think he blew the lead in the 8th inning. He lost. He was in the back forever. And we always used to joke he was in the back flogging himself for a game like that. We were like, oh man, he must just be beating himself up right now. And he came out, and in that game, there's like 3 games in a row where he'd given up a lot of hits. And Charlie Manuel said something along the lines of, sometimes in the strike zone so often, so good pitch to hit. Basically inferring that maybe he's in the strike zone too much without totally coming out and saying it. So after Roy finally comes out, I think I'm going to be really smart and go, Roy, you gave up 13 hits today in this complete game loss, and you give up double-digit hits in 3 straight starts. Do you ever think that you're in the strike zone too much? which is, if Roy, like his idea of a perfect game was 27 pitches and 27 outs. He never wanted to waste a pitch. He never wasted a pitch. So basically what I was saying is your entire pitching philosophy perhaps flawed here? And he looked at me like this, like he was going to kill me. And so he basically said, no. The interview ended, and everybody went, I thought he was going to kill you there. He was going to kill me too. He was.
That's really funny.
I was asking him if his pitching philosophy was sound or not. That's the way he took it. I didn't mean it that way, but that's the way it came across. So, but it makes me laugh now because, you knew who he was and you knew how he thought. It totally makes his reaction actually now makes more sense than ever.
That's really funny.
All right, we've got to wrap up, but I want to thank Tom McCARTHY, TODD ZOLECKI. Thank you guys so much for joining us here for our live stream series. The book is Doc. Here it is. You can click the green button below. That'll take you to our website to purchase a copy. Again, we'll include signed book plates there. Todd, congratulations, and seriously, thank you for writing this book. It's an incredible book. I'm so happy that we have it here. Thank you to our viewers, for everyone out there for attending.
Yeah, that's great.
And I'll give Tom and Todd, I'll give you guys the last word.
I'm just excited people were responsive and talking baseball. I mean, it was great. And Todd, it was a great book, and it came at the right time. It really came at the right time.
Yeah, thanks guys for having me. Thanks, Tom, for helping me out. Alex, thank you so much. Thanks to everybody that's bought the book and hopped on tonight. And it is, Tom. It's fun to talk baseball.
Yeah.
Let's hope it returns, and hopefully I can see you guys soon, and maybe start writing about some actual baseball games. It would be great.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, guys. We'll see you. Have a good night.
See you guys. Be good.
Take care.
See ya. Stay safe, everyone.